Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host as always, Alex, and with me tonight I have Dan,
Hey guys, how are you?
and we've also got Brad.
Good evening, everyone.
Well, guys, it didn't end up too bad in the end. I think we were sort of predicting the doom and gloom ahead of the Villa game with no recognised left back in the squad, all sorts of uncertainty about how we were going to line up, and Villa having a pretty decent lineup themselves. But walking away with a 1-1 draw wasn't the end of the world. Dan, I'll start with you. It looked pretty calamitous after the first 10 or 15 minutes, but we kind of settled into the match after that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was feeling a little bit sick after that first probably 10 minutes. Going 1-0 down so quickly, and having Ian seemed to be getting exposed a bit at right back. Dawson and Hector both looked very shaky in the centre to start the match. It was very concerning, but as you said, we did eventually work our way into the match and start to settle down. We had a couple of really good chances at the end of the first half, and then we completely controlled the second half. I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't actually come away with a win, but I'm still happy with the point.
Yeah, I guess it was interesting the fact that we subbed Campbell off for Myler, which sort of indicated we were happy to settle for the point. Brad, how did you see it? Were you happy with the point, or would you have rather we sort of press on and try and get the win?
I'm very happy with the point. I think if anyone told you that you were going to go to Villa and take anything away, I think we discussed it in this last week, that it was going to be pretty tough to get anything out of it. But I think the key thing, probably in the scheme of things, was the Myler sub was a surprise. But I think rest assured that it's a long season, and anyone that thought we were really going to snatch it was probably saying, look, both camps were a chance of walking away with all 3 points. So I think we just got to be happy with one, and that's it.
And I guess just on the Campbell sub, he really impressed me. I thought coming into the match he was going to be a bit low on fitness, but he really he was one of the shining lights, I suppose, on the pitch and seemed to link up really well with Hernandez. Dan, you've already sort of mentioned Aina at right back being exposed a bit, but we had a couple of debuts on the park. We had Aina, we had Clark at left back, who's one we should touch on as well, and obviously Campbell sitting a little bit deeper than Hernandez, but linking up quite well with him.
Yeah, you mentioned Clark, and I thought for being a centre midfielder, I believe, played at left back, he did an outstanding job. I mean, he did let his man go for the cross that led to Villa's goal, but apart from that, I thought he had an outstanding game and marked up really well following that, made sure he was really tight and gave away a couple of tactical fouls when he needed to, so that El Mohammadi couldn't get in behind him anymore. Campbell, you're absolutely right. I thought was watching him throughout the game and just thought he was outstanding. I was very impressed with his work ethic. I thought he probably should have done better with that chance at the end of the first half. But in saying that, good things to come from him, I expect.
And I guess also the interesting point out of it was Grzycki playing on the left was looking a bit unenthusiastic, wasn't really getting into the game too much, and following the game on social media as well, there was a bit of criticism for his work rate. But when he got switched over onto the right-hand side, we really looked a lot more dangerous after half-time in particular, and of course that was where the cross came from that led to our goal. Brad, I mean, Grzycki sort of identifies himself as a left mid, but the fact that he looks a lot better on the right sort of suggests maybe that's where he should play.
Look, he did, and probably the key thing that I thought as well was maybe when he was on the starting side there, he actually was too one-dimensional, whereas when they moved him, it was almost like he thought, I've got a bit more of a free rein here. They're going to try this. I know he's played in that position before, but a lot of it is really dependent on, I think, his attitude at the time. And it sounds like they all got a bit of a ribbing at half-time, and maybe that was the bit that got everything moving.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to imagine Slutsky giving a ribbing at half-time, given how affable he is and how enthusiastic he always is. I loved his comments after the game where he said he thinks he's a bit out of shape, he needs to eat a bit better because he was buggered after 70 minutes from pacing up and down the sideline. I guess the one position we haven't really touched on is our goalkeeper, who almost the forgotten man at the club, McGregor, after basically or literally a year off, half because of injury, half because of a loan to Cardiff. But if it wasn't for him, I thought we could have gone in about 2 or 3 goals down at halftime. But Dan, I thought he put in a great performance, especially in the first half.
No, you're not wrong. A couple of clutch saves to keep Villa out. And what you said is right. That I think without McGregor in goal for us on the weekend, it would have been a very different result.
Absolutely. I guess I'll finish the discussion with you, Brad. And I guess we've already sort of touched on most of the players who had a great game. But was there anyone else that sort of stood out on the park for you?
I think it's always easy when he scores a goal, but I really thought Bowen's goal sort of typifies a lot about what the guy's actually about. Like, he took that finish really, really well, and probably also the fact that it was set up so well. It probably showed that, with these guys having limited time together, they were still able to play the football that was almost Premier League quality in patches against what's supposed to be the strongest opposition or strongest squad opposition we'll face all year. So that was obviously a shining light, along with John Terry not looking as good as he probably thought he was. That was probably my 2 highlights for the day.
Yeah, I guess we got so caught up in talking about all of the other players. We should talk about the goal itself and Jared Bowen's impact and the fact that he elbowed the steward out of the way to go celebrate with his dad. So Dan, what did you make of the goal?
Oh, it was a great first goal for the club, in a great position, a great first-time finish. He worked real hard all night, and he really deserved it, especially to have all his family there watching. After the game, I've been reading a few reports, and his dad actually tore ligaments in his ankle when he was running down the grandstand to celebrate with Jared.
Yeah. Well, he was apparently saying he was going to jump onto the pitch, but the stewards sort of stopped him. So, it's a bit of an interesting story, that one. I guess we'll move on though and talk about the off-field business over the course of the week, and that's in terms of signings. And we've made one signing as of yet, which is Sebastian Larsson joining the club on a free transfer. He had a pretty good career in the Premier League with Birmingham and Sunderland, and was part of a Birmingham team that was promoted from the Championship, I think probably under Steve Bruce, funnily enough. But he's a pretty promising signing to get on a free transfer. Wouldn't be too expensive in terms of wages, I wouldn't think. But Brad, what did you make of the signing?
Look, it's a good signing. It's sort of along the lines of the Campbell signing to some extent, that we're not having a huge outlay to get him. And let's face it, we've got a lot of games to play this season. And love him or hate him, Huddleston was a quality midfielder that we know was probably going to be good for 30 games plus. And Larsson has a little bit of that Huddleston about him. I know they're very different players. The fact that Larsson likes to probably think he can get forward more, but I just like the fact that we've got someone who's played at this level. And a higher level, and is happy to come and play for us. And I do think that the fact that Slutsky's the sort of manager or coach, as they keep referring to him, the fact that he's got obviously a bit of a depth of riches in the midfield means he's happy to have a crack with all sorts of different mix-ups and lineups. And that's probably more of a stronger situation than just a player coming himself. I've always thought Larsson was a good player when he was at Sunderland. I didn't sort of admire him or anything, but I always thought he was a competent player. So at this level, he should be able to contribute pretty strongly, you would think.
And Dan, it's good to have a set piece taker, a good free kick taker in the team.
Yes, don't underestimate a dead ball specialist in your team, and people can seeing reporters saying, "Oh, well, he has bloody 2 years and he's overrated on this and that." But I reckon if you're on the dead ball, he may not score directly as much, but I think pretty sure he's still a good corner, and I think I've seen some of his free kicks. I'm pretty sure he had one or two crack hands, I'm not mistaken. But I'm got no problem having a crack with him and giving him a go in the team. As Brad said, he's experienced it. They'll end above. I think he's 400 odd career games and 80 or so in the championship. Like he's the sort of player we need. We've got such a young core that we need to add a couple of really experienced players. We've managed to get two in Campbell and Larson now for no transfers, like no money outlaid. It's great.
I guess the risk as well is we've had Burnley put a bid in for Clucas, which was rejected. I think it was last night our time. Some pessimistic supporters would say that means it's an inevitability that he'll go, but of course the club has emphatically said that they're not going to let anyone else go this summer unless it's crazy sort of money. Brad, do you see Clucas being a City player at the end of the transfer window?
Look, I think we were talking about this last week, something similar, but I do think that he'll stay. I think that maybe now the greed of our owners is probably actually going to be counterbalanced by the fact that they've had their day in the sun by selling these players off, getting some money out, and that's it. I think we wouldn't probably know the half of it, of how many inquiries they've had on Clucas already since the end of the season. And it's probably obviously only the fact that he's never had a relegation clause in his contract that means he hasn't gone easily. But I do think that he will stay, mainly because of the fact that we're getting right into it now. And it's probably not going to be in Clucas's best interest either to probably join a Premier League club that's looking at him being a squad player, whereas obviously with us he's got the potential to be the player of the year again.
Dan, what's your take on it? Do you reckon Clucas will stay?
I really hope that he does. And I don't think he will go, but at the same time, with some of the decisions that have been made by the club recently, it's impossible to make a fair judgment.
Well, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting one, and I think it'll certainly go down to the wire. Hopefully Burnley looks elsewhere, but of course they've now got a bit of money in the bank thanks to the sale of Andre Gray, so who knows, they might come knocking again. We've also been in the market for a position that we're pretty low stocked on, which is left backs, with a couple of rumours linking us to Ziegler from Portugal and also to Marvin Johnson, I believe it is, from Oxford in League One, who by all reports is pretty highly rated, so it would be an interesting one if we were able to get our hands on him. We obviously need to get a left back in, and it seems pretty crazy to think we could go into the game against Burton, second game of the season, without a left back in the squad. Dan, what have you made of these reports, and what do you think we should be doing about this left back position?
It sort of reminds me of last season when we went in the first couple of games with only the one actual centre half, and we were dropping Livermore and Huddleston back.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really do need to sort it out. I haven't had a chance to look at the players that we've been linked with themselves, but I'm fairly confident that Slutsky will be able to bring someone in that's appropriate before the window closes.
Brad, what's your take on it? Do you think we should be going with the more experienced option with this Ziegler fella from Portugal, or perhaps investing more in youth like we did with Odebajo at right back?
We've just got to get a proven left back. I don't know a lot about the prospects that we've got lined up, but I think one thing that's probably underestimated is the ability that if you get someone that's probably reasonably quick enough or fit enough, and I'm going to buck that trend in a minute anyway by talking about how Andy Dawson went up through the ranks. But you really need someone who's just a left back. And to me, it doesn't actually matter if they're coming from a division below or even two divisions below. If they've got the technique and the pace, we all know that it is really a team game in defence. That back four or back three or whatever it's going to be, week in, week out, needs to play as a unit. And we saw at times that as good as Robertson was, he could easily get caught out because he's that attacking player. Whereas most people would remember the days of Andy Dawson, even before we got anywhere near the Premier League. He was so reliable at left back that it was only if he's injured that we'd need to even consider someone else. So we've just basically got to lock one in, and someone who's probably played at least 50 or so league games in that position, and has got a bit of pace.
And I guess speaking of pace, there's been a few rumours floating around, and there have been for a few weeks now, about Musa making the move on loan from Leicester. Obviously the Slutsky links from his time at CSKA. It'd be a bit of a signing from the heavens, I suppose, Dan. If we were to land him on loan, I think he could do a pretty decent job in the Championship. I can imagine having him and Grzycki on either wing would be a pretty blistering combination. But do you suspect it's a likely chance or not so likely?
I think that's a tough one. I haven't kept up to date with what Leicester's done either, really, apart from, the obvious signing they made, or signings they've made. So I'm not sure what they've added to their stocks in the forwards.
Well, they've got Iheanacho in from Man City, is the main one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. See, because I think Musa would be he'll be the kind of player that he wants. Obviously, he wants to be playing it. They all want to be playing, but I think he won't want to be the third choice winger where he's almost there, but he doesn't. I don't think he'll want to be on the bench every week. So I think if that's the position that he's in, I think he might himself be trying to push for something to go through if the rumours are true, if there's discussions being had and he knows about them. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's hard. It's all speculation, so it's hard to say. But I'll just say it's. I'll say that it's likely, just because.
just for a bit of optimism, Brad. Anything to add to that?
Look, probably the only thing I'd add is that we saw last year when Silva brought in his past contact players, that he really did actually pick reasonably well. I mean, we all talked about Ranocchia being a bit of a misguided soul and he was going to be useless for us. And I think it was his first match. He came out, played man of the match and set up a goal. So if we're getting players that generally want to be there, we know that puts them sort of half ahead of anyone. So giving us more dimension and more ability to look at getting players, especially someone like Musa's just, he's quality. And we did sort of think that, okay, Fraser Campbell was going to be a really good addition, but we're still kind of thin in the attacking front. We've got the midfield very well sorted now. We've probably still got an issue or two other than left back in the back four, but getting another forward like that of his quality, he really might want to actually link up with Slutsky's pretty much a no-brainer.
Now, the next segment would normally be, we're going to start doing a segment where we look at past meetings with our coming opponent, but the interesting position we're in this week is that we've never actually faced Burton Albion before in our history. So it's going to be an interesting one this week and a pretty historic one in the sense that we are playing a new team, which is, I would think, pretty rare. I suspect, of course, the fact that Burton have spent most of their time as a non-league team plays a large part in that. What do you guys make of Burton and the challenge they'll make for us? Dan, I think you were talking about the fact they've had a pretty good season last year. It'll be an interesting game, but I suspect, from my point of view, us playing them at home has all the makings for a game where we should really be going out on the front foot and really kind of taking it to them.
I think this is we had a good result at Villa. We went away and we fought hard and we got a point, but at home we need to be looking for the win and we need to be proactive and we need to be going at Burton from the starting whistle and making a statement about the KCOM and saying, if you want to come here, you're going to have to play some really good football and you're going to have to defend your hearts out if you want to take points from here.
And I guess in terms of lineup, we've heard just today that Stewart is likely to miss this game as well. playing it safe with his ankle injury. Brad, would you like to see us lining up with the same 11 as last time out?
Yeah, look, I would, because I mean, if it was good enough to get a point at Villa, it's good enough to sit back and play the same formation and the same type of style against a team that I can't remember where Burton actually finished, but I think it was easily in the bottom half.
Yeah, I think they barely stayed up in the end.
Yeah, and assuming that, okay, they've improved, no matter what you think of us or whatever, our resources, new manager, these players we've brought in, we are automatically, without any application, got to be a top 8, 9 team, and these guys, even with improvement, shouldn't be. So we've got to play our way. I was impressed last week that Slutsky played 2 at the top, because I did think that it was pretty easy to try and park the bus a little bit and grind out something. So realistically, I can see him going with the same sort of lineup, assuming everyone's still fit and no niggles.
Burton's had a bit of a conflicting start to the season. They lost 1-0 to Cardiff, I think that was at home, and then they went away and beat Oldham 3-2 in the League Cup during the midweek. So they've scored a couple of goals and got a bit of confidence under their belts with that win at least. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. I think it reminds me of those games last time we were in the Championship against your Charltons, your Bristol Cities, etc., where if we're going to be going for, scoring a couple of goals and going for the throat, this is the sort of game to do it in. It's going to be an interesting first game back at the KCOM in terms of what the atmosphere is going to be like, in terms of the crowd figures and that sort of thing. I guess in terms of players to watch from the opposition, the main one that we'd be able to talk about with any sort of confidence would be Jackson Irvine. I mean, I don't even think I could name many other players at the club. Dan, is it going to be a bit interesting going up against Jackson Irvine? And obviously we've heard in the media over here all about his exploits last season. I think he finished as their top goal scorer. So I guess he's sort of their danger man.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see Australians abroad playing, and it's always nice to come up against them. It's nice when they're in the team as well, but
it's been a while since one of those.
No, it's been a little while, but no, I think he's a good player. He's a good young player, and he works hard within that team. From what I've seen and what I understand and what I've read from last season, that he is, he's a top player in their squad, and he will probably cause some problems just through sheer hard work in that midfield.
Brad, what do you make of Burton as an opponent, and how you see them taking it to us at the ground?
I don't really know enough about them, to be honest. I didn't really get to see much of their play last year, other than more so the results. But they do seem to have a bit of confidence about them. I think the issue probably is going to be that, by rights, this is the sort of team that we should be so, in form and systems just absolutely spot on to make it sort of a non-event for them. But this is going to be the problem, you see. We're still regarded as a top club, and anyone that's not in that top 4 or 5 or recent premiership experience is going to be on the target for everyone. And these guys would be thinking, well, this is a team that we need to prove we can beat. So they might have just as much to play for than us.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of being able to watch the game, we've sort of talked about it last week, I think, and it's been confirmed that we'll be able to watch this game on iFollow as a standalone game through the Burton Albion website. I think I've been tweeting about it earlier in the week, and I'll put out the message on the night of the game. I think the purchase becomes available 30 minutes before the game starts, and you then get access to the game for the 24 hours after the game begins, which is good. So if you're not able to watch it live, or you want to watch it the next morning, I think you can purchase it and watch it anytime up to 24 hours after the game's been completed. And after that, it'll be available on the Hull City website for free. So if you can manage to stay spoiler free for 24, 36 hours after the game finishes, you should be able to watch it for free with some Hull City commentary on the website. But if you want to watch it a bit earlier, then I think it's $9 from the Burton website. So not too bad a deal. At least we've got some options to watch the game each week. But I'll round it off.
Give the money to Burton.
Yeah, give the money to Burton. Help
At
support.
least they'll look after us.
They'll be amazed by this influx of money coming across
Yeah.
from Australia.
That's right.
They've got all these new fans. I'll round things off by starting with you, Dan, and I'll get a score prediction and how you think the game will pan out.
I think we'll have learnt from the mistakes that we made at Villa in the first half, and I think we'll come out pretty strong, and I think we'll just 2-0 win for us.
Brad?
Yeah, look, I initially thought that we'd really probably score 3 and concede 1 or 2, but I mean, let's face it, we only conceded 1 against Villa. I know it could have been more, but we could have scored more. So I can actually see us beating them like 4-1.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go somewhere in between. I agree with Dan. I reckon 2 or 3-0's probably where I sit. But I do think you're right. I do think it's likely we will probably concede 1, maybe 2. Our defence doesn't seem too solid, which is a bit of the opposite to how it felt under Bruce, where we felt more like we could keep the clean sheets and worry about where the goals were coming from. I feel like at this stage, Hernandez, Campbell, Bowen all looking pretty prolific up top, or at least potent up top. I could see us scoring 2 or 3 goals in this one. So, thanks for coming on, boys.
Oh, not a problem, anytime.
Yeah, not a problem, mate. I've got one little bit of trivia for you before we go.
Go for it.
Now, I've pinched this solely from Jimmy Bullard, so
Right.
I can't take any credit for this, but I thought let's test our knowledge here and just see how good we think our knowledge of some of our players are from last season.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask both of you, and it's nearest the pin wins, who had the highest ranking on FIFA last year.
Ooh.
This is FIFA 16, of course. Between
Okay.
Elmo Hamady
Mm-hmm.
and Davies, Curtis Davies, and by how much? So I'll start with you, Alex.
Geez, that's a good question. I reckon Davies by maybe 3 points.
Okay.
And Dan?
Yourself, Dan?
I was going to go Davies as well, but I'm only going Davies by 1.
Well, by default, you have to win, Dan. Elmo Hamady wins by 4.
Oh,
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And surprisingly, I think they actually gave,
What were the ratings?
77 for Davies, 81 for Elmo. But I actually thought the interesting thing was that...
You're right. I
They-
never remember seeing an Elmo Hamady card at 81.
yeah. The funny thing I thought was, because we know obviously that Davies was always happy to throw his body in front of anything.
Yeah.
Elmo was generally trying to throw his body around something. But physicality, Elmo was a 77 and Davies was only a 78, whereas I would have thought there'd be a bigger difference between those two.
Yeah, I think there's been a
But,
few players calling out FIFA for how they've done those ratings. I think Batshuayi is another one who's sort of criticised them for his shot stats and all that sort of thing. So,
Well, poor old Curtis Davies gets a 38 for shooting. And I think he scored more goals than Elmo anyway.
Yeah, I think he's scored a couple of decent goals, especially, I think it wasn't Fulham, it was Preston or someone at the start of the championship season, someone who wears white, he absolutely lashed a goal in from a corner, I think, from memory. So I think he's got a decent shot on him.
Yeah, so not probably the smoothest of competitions, but I thought I'd throw that in there anyway.
That's an
Oh, that was
interesting one.
fun.
It was interesting on the weekend watching El Mohammadi go up against Clark and watching El Mohammadi throw himself around a bit, and I think he even copped a handball at one point, and it was interesting seeing that all happening with him as an opposition player now rather than one of ours, having to put up with his diving around and handling of the ball quite often. So it's interesting how things change, and of course Bruce as well. I mean, seeing all the rumblings from Villa complaining about his tactics of defending the 1-goal lead and thinking, geez, you know, it's shoes on the other foot now, we don't have to put up with it.
That's it. Well, now they're on the other side of the fence. We don't like them.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, anyway, thanks for coming on, boys.
Thanks for having us, Alex.
No worries, and thanks to everyone for listening in. We hope to have you back here this time next week, celebrating a big City win against Burton. So until next time, come on, City. You've been listening to the official Hull City Australia podcast. For more discussion, join us on Facebook in the Hull City AFC Australian Supporters Group, or follow us on Twitter at Hull City AFC Oz. The music was created by Amber and Black.
City's on fire. We're going higher and higher. There's no turning back 'cause you're Amber.